Well, that was interesting. I'm glad we had an opportunity to go down into those churches. And now that we're on the back side of that experience, I've come across the street, sitting in a restaurant and spitballing a bit about the passage that started it all. It's drawn from Matthew chapter 2, and of course it's Matthew who describes how Mary, Joseph, and Jesus went down to Egypt and then later came back to Israel, Palestine. And then Matthew goes on to make this statement, and I think it's important for us to understand in the context of the larger passage. He says, this was to fulfill the prophecy, out of Egypt I have called my son. And that passage is actually a quotation that comes out of the book of Hosea in the Old Testament, chapter 11, verse 1. It's as if Matthew looks back to the Old Testament and he says, this is to fill up that which was said way back there. Now, I think you probably share with me this conclusion that the Old Testament and the New are intrinsically linked. Sometimes the Old Testament quotations in the New defy our exegetical habits. But in this case, I think it's quite interesting to note that in the text of Hosea, it's used to describe Israel's exodus coming up out of Egypt. And in Matthew's account, it's used to describe the so-called exodus from Egypt that was taken by Jesus and the family. And the parallel can't be any more striking and cannot be missed, absolutely cannot be missed. And it's this. What Jesus is doing, according to the description in Matthew, is creating or being a part of a new exodus. God is working a new exodus in the story of his people. And just as the Old Testament people of God came out of Egypt way back when under the hand of Moses, so too a New Testament people of God is being created. And of course, this is at the core of what the gospel story is teaching us, that the people of God have been redefined, they've been renewed, and they've been given a new kind of freedom. It's a spectacular parallel and one that should not be missed. Oh.